So, you all know the story of the shark. And as it turns out, there's even more to it that's been uncovered as an epilogue story to it. As you may remember, Mario was jealous of Funky Kong from the start. And well, after the incident with the shark, Mario became more angry that he was never able to prove himself better than him. He began taking it out on others and lashing out to his close ones and family like Luigi and calling him motherfucker, and the princess was getting more and more impatient with him. Mario was stomping around one day, upset over Funky, and he started to go after Toadette because he recognized her hanging around him. She began assaulting Toadette, attacking her, and body slamming and power bombing her against a metal trunk, and she was all like, ah! And Mario kicked her and demanded answers of Funky Kong's whereabouts. She swore she didn't know, and eventually Peach saw Mario and ran up to stop him, like, no! And she grabbed Mario, who started fighting back and resisting, and after a while Mario was like, enough! And he said something about going on to try something else, and as you recall, Funky Kong asked, the shark went so fast that he disappeared into some sort of hyperspace not to be seen again. Mario went on to try it himself. He got on a bike and he started speeding around as fast as he could, and after a while of gaining speed, somebody noticed and eventually notified Peach. She once again was like, no, and went off to stop Mario, and she tried driving over to him and catching up to him and catching him, but Mario just kept on going, and he was like, hey, fuck you, and he eventually flashed just like the shark. However, he took Peach and the rest of the Mario Kart Wii cast with him, and they ended up in this place that looked like Mario Circuit, but it was all distorted and fuzzy and glitched out looking and just completely messed up with some other differences. As it turns out, the place that they went was a place that was hidden in Mario Kart Wii all along, known as Draw_Test. And Mario saw this as the opportunity to prove himself. However, as he looked more and more around, he began to become amazed and couldn't handle it and was like, wow! Because the area was affecting Mario and everybody else, and Mario tried doing things. However, every time he tried, the area would make him bleed out hyper-realistic blood off his face and completely cover and obstruct his view. The course then started speaking to him, and out popped 4 additional slightly different copies of Mario Circuit GCN. As it turns out, the place was alive and sentient and aware and trying to break things. It was casted to the forbidden valley of the cutting room floor because, as it turns out, Mario Circuit was never meant to exist in the first place. It just barely managed to sneak itself into the final game. It is a malicious and evil entity. Mario tried to fight back against it, and the other races were just as helpless, and it started fighting with Peach, and she was like, Mario! And Mario was like, princess, I'm trying, and he tried indeed, but as he tried, more hyper-realistic blood would cover Mario's face, and he'd go like, oomph, and suddenly a familiar laugh started playing. Ah, 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 ah. it was Wario. And as you may remember, Waluigi was the villain of the previous events, and Wario was relegated to pulling his trolley stroller with his mouth like a horsey. It seems like it was all ploy, and this time Wario was up to rise in the power. However, nobody could see him until they heard the familiar phrase, "You want fun? Wario show you fun." And suddenly, Wario's head, alone by itself, came out just like the Wario apparition and started chasing Mario, who ran away on all 2 feet. It was like, "Whoa!" And he eventually found a bike again and started driving away, and he was like, "Oh yeah, let's go." However, once he started driving, more hyper-realistic blood appeared on Mario's face, and he was like, "Ooh!" And he started freaking out, and he slightly bumped a wall, and because this is Mario Kart Wii, he came to a full-on stop and went flying. And Mario was helpless to do anything against Wario apparition. Just when all hope seemed lost, a familiar other voice came up that was like, "Ooh!" And it was Petey Piranha. He was back, and he came to fight with Wario, and he wasn't able to really attack him, but he was able to distract Wario and puke on him and spit out chocolate pudding and flap around and smile and dance and do limbo and hits baseball balls really good. However, Wario then came up with the brilliant idea, knowing that Petey is obsessed with McDonald's Pizza Pima, and he began to lay out pizza of all different kinds of variety: veggie green pizza with mozzarella, pepperoni pizza, margarita pizza, garlic pesto pizza, cheeseburger pizza, buffalo chicken wing pizza. Mario was enticed too and began to drool and get hard eyes, and he was like, "Oh, yeah." And then more blood came up on his face. He's like, "Ooh." Petey went on to devour the Pima. He tried resisting. He was drooling like Mario too, but eventually he was like, "Oh, Pima!" And he gave in and started eating the Pima all at once and shoving down slice by slice down his big mouth. Wario was watching this and laughing at succeed, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I can't wait to annoy Mibs about this." And out of nowhere came Bowser's and Dry Bones on the unused Cloud and Mecha Koopa bikes in the original Mecha Koopa one. I mean the Bowser mech ones that second time. And they went up to Wario, but instead of attacking him, they began confiding into him and asking Wario about why he's doing this and why he feels the need to attack and scare people as a giant floating head. And he's like, "Well, it's not my weight, I fucking own that, but it's just that sometimes I wonder if why I haven't gone on money adventures more often again, and if it's really worth it and people still care about my games, and I just want to feel as close to Luigi anymore." And they began comforting Wario, who started to cry and let out a bit. He's like, "Yes, it's so true." And Dry Bones was there and started cackling, and the other Bowser's like, "Ooh," and all seemed well, and that they could work together to escape Draw Demo. However, Mario got up again, noticing more rumbling, and out from the ground rised another being with a godlike force, and descended down like an angel with dramatic chords and all, like that Kafka guy. However, once it descended, they saw some unfamiliar strange man in a cowboy hat. The entity yelled, "Yee-haw! It's me, Cowboy Jim!" And he was like wonder why that person's died? And he pointed at baby Luigi and he was like, look at the footage. And he threw a bomb at baby Luigi and he was like, oh ho ho. And Toadette got scared and started running around in circles screaming. And Mario went to fight Cowboy Jim and they tackled each other to the ground and started rolling around. But then Cowboy Jim was like, yeehaw! And started gaining more powers and spamming lightning and blue shells and harming Mario with it. And Mario was like, ooh, ah, ooh, and ooh, and ooh, and he began to become all bloody and get his shirt ripped off and everything. And the princess was like coming on a bike and she was like, Mario, and she tried ramming up to Cowboy Jim and Cowboy Jed saw her coming and he was like, wonder how this bike got all explodey? Look at the footage. And he sent another bomb to Peach and she was like, when it blew up on her and the princess, her fingers blew off and blood started leaking out from where Peach's fingers once were, and she was like, no, and Mario was like, a Peach, and he felt his knees and started panting real hard, and Mario was about to give up, but then Toadette and baby Luigi was like, help, and suddenly, somebody else warped in, and it was Funky but green. He yelled out, the shock! And he began to dive into Cowboy Jed and started rapidly punching and beating him, and Cowboy Jed lost his head, and he was a bloody mess with his shirt and mustache soaked in hyper-realistic blood, and he was about to give up like Mario too, and Mario, while witnessing this on his knees, was in absolute awe, and his eyes started to bleed out. He was like, whoa! And he began to almost smile, as if he was proud and accepting of Funky being number one, or taunting us, and Cowboy Jed also began to smile, and he was like, yeehaw, another sexy victim I see, and he began to rise up, and a bomb came out of his head with a timer, and he was like, yeehaw, 5 minutes until detonation, and they could not stop him, and Funky knew what to do. The shock! Began uttering a phrase, and out of nowhere he summoned out the cut, boo, and chain chop items, and they grabbed Cowboy Jed's arms, and they ripped them clean off after giving enough pulling force, and Cowboy Jed began to scream, and the mystery man fell, and his bomb stopped, and the shock started kicking him and punching and such him even more, and baby Luigi was like, stop, he's already dead, and Funky Kong began to quit. It seemed like that was over. However, Cowboy Jed was not dead, and he was like, yeehaw! Wonder why I'm so immortal? Look at the footage! And he began to start another bomb. However, Funky Kong, as the shock, screamed his name and delivered a punch that just totally vaporized Cowboy Jed and blasted him off into many particles that decayed and dissipated. However, once again, using that much power caused the shock to lose control, and everybody else there, especially Mario, who was still bleeding, were free for the taking. Funky smiled at Mario, giving a side glance, and then zoomed up and punched him in the torso, and Mario like, ooh, and went flying and tumbling down and bled more. It seemed like everybody was still doomed. However, the Bowsers came running in, pulling a Bowser bike with them, and they were like, ooh, hoo, hoo, ooh, hoo, hoo, and Dry Bones is with him again, cackling and laughing his funny bony skulls, and they brought the Bowser bike up to the Shock, who touched it, and then gasped as a beam of light started surrounding him. He's like, ooh! And it was the true meaning behind the Bowser bike that started to cleanse him of the shock, and Funky Kong returned to his normal self, and he was smiling, still surrounded in a heavenly light, and he was all like, thank you. You freed me from the curse of the shock. I can now move on and pass as myself. And Mario's all like, really? However, Funky Kong suddenly returned to the shock form. He was like, just kidding. And he sent a powerful bolt of lightning to Mario, which was near a mortal blow for him. He was like, ooh, whoa. However, after that, Funky Kong once again referred back to his normal self again, and he was like, just kidding about that one too. And then he was like, I must go now. I don't know if I'll ever appear again. And Toadette was very sad, and Funky Kong gave her a look, and then Donkey the Dong ran up to him, and he was like, ooh, 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 and he stopped in front of Funky, who was looking at him now, and he was like, but Funky Kong, I love you. And Funky Kong was like, I know. And then he began to fade away, turning into dust as he went, and the beam of light disappearing alongside with him. Everybody then began crying, like, oh, ho, 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 and even Petey, who was still eating his Pimo's gang, choked up and frowning, going like, as he was still shoving pizza slices down his throat and getting nice and fat and sexy. Funky Kong, however, left one last gift to him. The beam of lights cleansed them and erased the corruptness of Draw_Demo and returned it back to a normal, non-sentient and cynical version of Mario Circuit. After the dust was cleared and everything settled, Mario seemed humbled by everything, and he was all like, let's all race, and it was like, woohoo, and they began flying around, and soon it was all fun and games as everybody enjoying themselves, and Birdo getting hit and like, but then they started getting hit by too many shells, and soon again Mario was like, no, I'ma be number one, you fuckers, but at least things were more at peace. I can't disclose who gave me this info again, but just do be warned that the files of Mario Kart Wii are like a kitchen sink, and they can contain anything, so do be careful whenever you go searching around, lest you run into the shock.